Last year, the History Channel told a tale of brutality, alliances, and infidelities during a time when the world was ruled by raiders and explorers through the eyes of a Viking society. And on February 27th, the hit show Vikings returns for season 2, and here to tell us all about it is King Horik himself, also known as Donal Logue. We appreciate you stopping by today.
It's great to be here.
Busy guy. I've got a whole list of things that you've been working on. Vikings, it seems like it's like one just small blip on your schedule that you have on a regular basis.
It was a pretty big blip.
Yeah, I mean, yes,
last year was
absolutely.
pretty wild. I did Copper on BBC America, Sons of Anarchy, then went off to Ireland to do Vikings, and we finished filming in November. So now we're just getting ready for the season to come out.
Yeah, well, season 2, give us a teaser. What are we expecting?
Where season 1 lets off, I think the kind of central thing is this Cain and Abel kind of story between Ragnar and Rollo, between these two brothers, and the alliances and allegiances that kind of split over that. And Travis Fimmel's character Ragnar is set up with me, King Horik, and his brothers with this guy Jarl Borg, and it starts with a bang.
I mean, it's a heck of a tease right there, and a lot of fans, I think, will be pleased to know about that. Were you surprised by the success from season 1?
I actually wasn't. Like, when I first heard about Vikings, which was many months before they started shooting, I thought that's brilliant. First of all, I was a history major. I'm fascinated by the time and the culture and the history. And secondly, I thought what's interesting about Vikings is, and this is just a kind of like a tangential thing, but that there's so much interest in a way, fantasy and Middle Earth, but the Vikings were was an actual historic group that kind of would appeal to people who like that stuff. They believed in shapeshift. They were wild, and their kind of religious beliefs were wild, and they didn't have a written history like the Greeks and the Romans. So there's still this real air of mystery about them, and yet they were so influential. They made it to North America long before the Spaniards. Russia is the Rus people, the North people. They founded, and they went in through the Ukraine, Normandy. The Vikings were everywhere, and then they were feared, but they settled. So they had a huge impact on the development of the West.
You were, and you mentioned this, you were an intellectual history major, studied at Harvard. And now you and I were just chatting, now you've got 16, 17-hour days when you're out there filming these things. And these are not easy shoots when you're filming these
No, they're
series.
fascinating. It's really fun. I mean,
physically demanding.
It can be physically demanding. Nothing compared to, look, it's a joy. It's an incredible gift to be able to take historical events and bring them to life for people. The crew works really hard, and sometimes that's a misconception. People don't really know that the days are like that a little bit, but for us it's a joy. And and in Ireland, like, what a country of hard workers. Everybody was great, but the most important thing is, and maybe this is kind of what I'm addicted to in a weird way, is that you step into these different worlds, whether it be, and I'm not even talking about the fictional culture, like the motorcycle club of Sons of Anarchy or Vikings. It's like you literally go to a place with these people working on it and become really good friends with a group of 150, 200 people working towards a common goal, and you bond really quickly, and then boom, you're off to the next one. And it's, as a human being, it's fun, it's fascinating.
And you mentioned there's a good deal of diversity in the fact that you've got Sons of Anarchy, Vikings, and then you also have Copper as well. So
yeah.
It's quite a spectrum.
Yeah, well, now I'm working on Law and Order, and that's a very different one, and that's fantastic. And
I also just understand that congratulations are in order. You're going to be playing Detective Harvey Bullock
in Gotham.
Yeah, that's great.
What a wild world, so it's been very fortunate to stay busy, and don't take it for granted at all. Exceptionally grateful. So
I always find it interesting. I mentioned before about studying at Harvard University, because I love when you meet an actor, or really anyone in any profession, and you find out that maybe their education had sort of steered differently than what the outcome was. But it seems as if what you studied, is actually what you're going through right now.
It was fascinating. The first job I ever did was called Common Ground, about the Boston busing crisis in the mid-'70s. And it was a Pulitzer Prize-winning book that I had studied in college. And then And the Band Played On, which was about the AIDS crisis, was one of my first, and it was another Pulitzer Prize-winning book. Gettysburg, about the Civil War, the Killer Angels. So in a way, I felt like I was just taking a part of my history class and then getting to step into it and help recreate the story in a way that might be more palatable or bring it to more people. So it's everything is kind of storytelling, especially history.
Yeah.
Because it is telling the story of what happened and trying to learn from it and trying to kind of weed through, history is told by the winners, or there's always a certain perspective in when someone tells a history.
Right.
So it's a continuation of my education, I think.
Would you have had any idea when you were going through school that you would end up acting, that you would be?
Not at all, not close whatsoever. I grew up on the Mexican border. We didn't really have a television for a long time, and then when we did, I remember they filmed an episode of BJ and the Bear in my hometown,
right.
and you're like, whoa, man, I've seen that guy on the box,
Right, right.
But when I got to college, there was kind of a thriving underground, not official. There was no department, but there was this interesting little theater scene, and I kind of dipped into it and got hooked. When I was in high school, I was president of this thing called American Legion Boys Nation. Clinton went in high school and met Kennedy. Like, they'll take kids from every public school, and then 2 go to Washington, D.C., and you run for government. And so my senior year, I was traveling around. I spoke with Ronald Reagan at the American Legion National Convention in Seattle, and I was full on. That was my goal, was to go into probably, international relations, diplomacy,
well, in a way, you're doing that now.
I think it's not that dissimilar in some ways, but it's, and I was telling Brian, who works here beforehand, it's a fascinating journey, but there's also things that happen in life. You have a family, you have children, and so you're like, man, I've got to chase the carrot that takes care of my family. That one's the one available to me. But I wrote a novel last year, and I have a trucking company.
I was going to ask you about that. How do you get started in that?
I always, when I was young, growing up on the Mexican border, my cousin and I used to drive not like a 5-ton box truck for my dad up to Los Angeles, and I always just liked those road trips with my cousin at night, working on it by the side of the road, and I ended up getting my Class A license to drive 18-wheelers, made friends with these people, Bud and Kathy Williams, neighbors of mine in Oregon, and we just started getting trucks one by one. And
have you ever done a trip? Have you ever done a haul?
Oh yeah, I was driving last January.
Really?
And
No kidding.
and I didn't have all that work lined up, and you never knew if you don't know if you do or not.
Right.
I mean, I always tell people, look, outside of John Travolta or whatever, I'm sure the cast of Welcome Back Kotter said they probably felt fairly set the day after it got canceled. You don't know if that's your cold pizza, you're done working or not.
Right.
And I just, as a human being, I don't like to think, and I don't blame other people. So I won't say, I can't be busy because some guy in a suit somewhere doesn't see it my way. I'm like, I'll never let someone else determine whether or not you have a vital day. You can go out and start a company. You can go get a license to drive truck, whatever it is. I don't like feeling, you know what I mean? I don't like feeling like I don't have this proactive choice to do something with my life. If the acting stuff is great, right on. And I tell friends of mine out there, they're like, well, why is it popping so good for you? And I'm like, precisely because when I get to a point in my life where I'm happy, I can drive a truck, or I can write this, or I can find other things to do, and it's Tao, it's Zen. You walk away from something and you're desireless, it'll come back. Yeah.
Are you going to drive a cab as Jimmy again?
I would, yes.
Yeah?
I guarantee it.
That was great.
I think we're gonna bring back Jimmy McBride. Yeah,
that
I miss him.
Yeah, I think a lot of.
And now we're back in New York, and we said it in Boston, but of course we're shooting this. We shot all over New York, and those were good days. I miss living here, and
Well, we've obviously I think you've got a lot going on right now. I don't think that you've got much time to sit
Well, I'll
down.
be back in New York for a long time for Law and Order in Gotham, so that'll be great.
We will be looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Donal Logue, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you.
We certainly appreciate that. Season 2 of Vikings, Thursday, February 27th, 10 p.m.
It's great, yeah. It was really exciting to be part of this real international production. Met a lot of great actors from Scandinavia and everywhere. You know, like it was a great group of people. I'll really I hold that kind of dear in my heart. That whole experience.
Well, we look forward to it. Continued success to
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.